ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track, and ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
This is Cop Talk, talking crime, cases, and backing the blue. Now, here are your hosts, Captain Ed Mehmet and Detective Kevin Schroeder.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are again for another session of Cop Talk. I'm retired New York City Police Department Captain Ed Mehmet, the co-host of the show. Our host, retired Detective First Grade Kevin Schroeder, is off somewhere in Asia on some secret assignment, and I'm filling in for him. And filling in for me, in a sense, is our producer, Joe Diamond, who does a great job. Say hello, Joe.
Hey, thanks for that warm introduction, Ed.
And Joe is going to introduce our next guest.
So today we have a very esteemed guest, Jeff Wiesenfeld. He's a veteran of New York City and New York State politics and government. He held high-ranking positions under the administration of Ed Koch. He also held a high-ranking job under Senator Al D'Amato. And then finally, he was a senior aide to Governor George Pataki. He also served on the board he also served as a trustee on the CUNY board. He's a very successful investment banker in New York. He's also a very ardent Zionist who, has stood up time and time again for the good cause. And I'm proud to have him as a guest today. Jeff, welcome to Cop Talk.
Thank you very much. Thanks, John. You've been around a long time. We've been in trenches more than once.
Don't say that.
Hey, Jeff, so tell us a little more about yourself, more than what Joe was talking about.
Well, my parents and my wife's parents were children of 4 Holocaust survivors. When I say that, I don't mean Jews who suffered in Germany through the anti-Semitic laws and got out and escaped. I'm talking about those who unfortunately got the full benefit of the German treatment in World War II, exile, Siberia, death camps, and they managed to survive and make it to America at a time when everybody had to wait their turn to come here, become productive citizens, learn the language, take a citizenship test, and that was the way it was done. And so my way was I had no connections. We were a poor family. We lived in the South Bronx. To give you an idea how poor we were, without exaggerating, I lived a Depression-era childhood in the 1960s. We couldn't afford shares to move to Co-op City when it was first open, brand new, beautiful. And so I made my way into government. I served in the FBI and the Foreign Counterintelligence Division for 5 years. It was interesting, but my heart was in New York. And I had participated in the original Ed Koch campaign in '77. And I got a position as chief of staff in the transportation department. Mike Rodniciano and Ross Sandler, Sam Schwartz. From there, when Koch lost, I made my way to Al D'Amato. Actually, I was introduced to D'Amato by Koch, which is interesting, who said, I'll never forget it. He says, you know what? You're not such a great Democrat anyway. I'll introduce you to Al. And that was a big break. And from him, I went to the Pataki campaign, worked for Pataki, served on some public boards for him, and basically ran the New York City office. And from there, when, after I was with Pataki about 6 years, from there I migrated to Sanford Bernstein and a wealth manager, because at some point you have to make a living. And remained active, continued on those public boards until the terms expired. And then, of course, I think a calamity, not just our country, but hit our city and state. Once you lost, in those days, look, Giuliani was a great mayor, but once you lost him, you lost Bloomberg, and Pataki had concluded his 12 years, it was downhill all the way for us. And everything that follows with that.
Jeff, you're a veteran of New York politics. Give us your opinion of the public safety state of affairs in the city.
The public safety is a catastrophe, and the reason is multifold. You just can't pin it on one thing. Look, it used to be said, and it sounds old-fashioned, toleration of crime causes crime, because nobody believes anymore that poverty causes crime. Nobody believes that nonsense anymore, except people like AOC. No one even says it anymore. They don't even pretend. The bail laws are horrific. You have a governor who at best is an ingenue. What do I mean an ingenue? You know, people say, oh, there's no opportunity. Let's be very blunt honest, and I'm very blunt honest. The state of New York is really run by 4 people who are African Americans. It's run by Heastie, Cousins, James, and Adams. Now, people will say, well, what about the governor? No, governor's not running this state. How do I know that? Because one thing I know about Andrew Cuomo, my father and Andrew Cuomo's father, we weren't great friends. He knew who I was. I knew who he was. We were on opposite sides. But one thing I know about Andrew Cuomo is that he knew what was good for him. He knew what he had to do to preserve his position and his stature. Day one, the governor goes to Heastie and Cousins in the Senate and the Assembly, gives them a massive pay raise, and they go and screw her, no other language, they screw her, no pun intended, with the bail laws and the appellate judge. There is no way on earth that Cuomo would have given them a raise before saying, listen, you want the raise for all your members? You want to look good? I want my appellate court judge. And the candidate was a good one, by the way. And his chief judge, Del Fiore, was a good one, by the way. He would have demanded that. He would have demanded real reform to the bail laws, not the fake reform she gave us, where she blames everyone else. She blames everyone else for the fact that she says the judges are not doing their job, the DAs aren't charging properly, like she did just last week with DA Tierney in Suffolk County. So we're in this terrible situation here, going downhill. No sanction, no bail, nobody's prosecuting. And I don't know how anyone could opt to sign up to be a New York City cop today. How can you do that? You got to be out of your mind. You're not backed up. You're emasculated legally. You're not paid properly for what you take. It is no wonder that we have the best cops out here in Nassau County and Suffolk and probably in Westchester. Although I really don't know because I don't live there. My brother does. But this is a bad situation. There's much more to it. It depends on what you want to talk about because there's so many aspects to it.
Getting on to another topic, you recently criticized the district attorney in Arizona. No, I'm sorry. You didn't criticize her. You praised her for refusing to extradite a murder suspect back to New York because she believes that Alvin Bragg, the DA of Manhattan, wouldn't do anything about that. So what you're talking about ties right into Bragg. Can you elaborate on that?
You know, we always use the word chutzpah. Chutzpah is nerve and verve. Bragg, one thing he's got some damn nerve. He goes on TV in response. He said, well, she's engaging in showmanship, the DA or the sheriff in Maricopa County, Arizona. He says, we have a murder suspect, and extradition is a prime principle of American justice. And we have a family that wants justice, and we have a murder suspect. And he says, and our crime is down in New York. Our crime is down. First of all, that's a bunch of nonsense. Everyone knows, not anecdotally, but they know that crime is not down in the categories that count for the average New Yorker. That's number one. And number two, any mitigating effect on crime that he's citing has nothing to do with Bragg. It's because of the cops on the street that the legislature and people like him are emasculating. So if I were the family of the victims here in New York, I would be pleased that that aggravated assault suspect in Arizona is being charged there first, rather than for the more serious crimes here. Why? The likelihood is he's going to do more time in Arizona for those crimes than he would do in New York for his crimes. So the whole thing is absurd. Absurd.
We off? 30 seconds of carefree bliss.
Oof, like wind in your hair carefree.
Oh, like using Clorox Disinfecting All-Purpose Cleaner in the home carefree.
Yes.
Like dog slobbing on the coffee table and cleaning it with Clorox Carefree.
He's on a roll now.
Spit toothpaste on the faucet.
You got it. You got it.
Peanut butter on the light switch.
Oh, spritz, spritz.
Spritz, spritz. Clorox, man. Clean feels good.
Okay, we're back.
Use as directed.
The #1 selling product of its kind with over 20 years of research and innovation. Botox Cosmetic, out of botulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel? Or that white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
Hey guys, finding the perfect gift for the food lover in your life is easy, thanks to Goldbelly. Goldbelly ships America's most iconic foods, straight from world-famous restaurants right to your door. So if you want to treat someone to Joe's Stone Crab from Miami, Franklin Barbecue from Texas, or desserts from famous foodies like Ina Garten or Martha Stewart, Goldbelly has you covered, with free shipping anywhere in the country. Just go to goldbelly.com and for a limited time, get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT. That's promo code GIFT.
Well, so speaking of nerve, you've been very critical of bail reform, as I'd mentioned. The Assembly Speaker Hasty, he shut you down on Twitter. Is that right? You blocked your account.
He didn't shut me down. I became louder as a result because I don't know if you know, a lot of people have been shut down by Hasty. He can't take criticism because he knows he's wrong. Listen, this is a guy, the Speaker of the Assembly. Try to imagine this. People who were sought twice, I understand, for serious crimes which occurred in front of his office in the Bronx and were witnessed by staffers of his, and he forbade them from speaking to the police as witnesses. The Speaker of the Assembly obviated the public service, the public spiritedness of every citizen that every citizen should have. He forbade them from speaking to the police about those crimes. And then, of course, as we know, he blocks a lot of people. And some of those people, if you go online on Facebook and elsewhere, what they do, it's very creative. They put his picture and they make fake Hasty accounts so people can go attack him anyway. So he was angry because I expressed publicly what everybody else is feeling, that he is responsible in part for rallying these reforms to the bail law, denying even Adams, when Adams spoke early in the mayoralties, I think he's unfortunately given up on it already. He was speaking much more actively about the bail laws and the need for reform, but he realized that Hasty and Cousins weren't going to do anything. So what's he going to do? He's going to keep talking about the same thing, and it goes nowhere, which is unfortunate. But so Hasty blocked me from his site. I really don't care. I'll tell you, the man thinks he's very smart, that he knows the system. He knows how to manipulate the few moderates that he has, mostly not moderate. He has some serious progressives there. And of course, the usual that they all do, which is to shut out the Republican majority. But in terms of not thinking what this means for the state, the reason why people are leaving the state with big money, the man is an imbecile, an absolute imbecile.
Well, we're getting back to the bail reform that he was responsible mainly. Are you familiar with Donna Lieberman from the American Civil Liberties Union?
Yeah.
Right. Do you recall her comments when she said that bail reform has nothing to do with the rise in crime?
Yeah, listen.
I mean, I was laughable.
Yeah, look, there's a class of people. There's a class of people that would look down at you and Joe and me. These are pseudo-intellectuals who operate on social theorems that they magnify as truth. Again, it's not reality. It's not what people are living. It's not what people are experiencing. I mean, you heard all of the over the last few months from the police department. You had Giacalone on Good Day New York, Adams, everyone who knows what's happening. Everyone knows what's happening. They feel it, they see it, they live with it. And again, these are just social theorists putting out an opinion which has no basis in fact. No basis.
All right, that was a good statement. The National Guard in the subways. Up until this morning, the National Guard was there. Now, Curtis Lee announced on his show that as of 9:30 this morning, they were removed from the subways. Are you aware of that?
Well, that's scandalous in and of itself, but, that's not the answer either. First of all, the entire concept, the entire concept of putting the National Guard on the subway is a farce. First of all, the National Guard of every state should be at the southern border. That's number one. That's another story. But think about this. All these things that they come up with, in this case, the governor and Adam National Guard, going to patrol, more cops. It's all very nice. Doesn't solve the problem. And the reason is it's a cover-up. They don't want to admit, even if they wanted to admit, they're not going to do anything about it. It all comes back to the recidivism and the bail laws. Look, they're now going to screw people to come into Manhattan. They're going to screw them. And the reason has nothing to do with congestion. I'll tell you why. People who live in underserved areas of mass transit, or people who are afraid to use the subway, or people who have medical appointments, or a whole panoply of people that must use automobiles to come into town, they're going to come anyway. I guarantee you there will be no mitigation on traffic. It wasn't about that anyway. The environmentalists say it. They know in their heart it's not true. It's not going to change. That's what happens in a core business district. The reason they're doing it is because they're losing $1 billion a year in fare beating. And the reason they're not engaging against fare beating is because they don't want to. Why? Because they consider it a social justice issue. And for some people who go on the subway without paying the fare, it's kind of like, for lack of a better term, it's like an unlegislated reparation. That's really what it is. Look, think about it.
Oh.
Not everyone who jumps the fare commits a crime. But I want you to find me, Governor Hochul, Jano Lieber, any of you guys, Heastie, Cousins, find me the person who commits a violent crime on the subway who paid their fare. That's why our subways were safe. Because under Giuliani and Bloomberg and under broken windows, fare beating was not allowed. It was punished. So largely you prevented criminals from coming into the system. Those people committing those crimes do not pay the fare. They're still going to come into the system, and they're going to bet that they can get in there and stay out of the way of a cop or a National Guardsman and then go about their business robbing or slashing someone or whatever it is they do on the subway. So it's not about these measures that you're talking about and that the public officials are talking about. It's also nonsense. It's about stopping fare beating. You get many of the criminals, if not most, off the system.
Well, that's
now
true.
They'll go on the street, which is another problem.
Well, that's true. If you go back to the early 90s when Bratton was the chief of the transit police, he really pushed that, the fare beating concept, and it proved to be correct. I was still in the police department at the time, and what they were finding was that a large number of these people that were beating the fares were wanted for criminal offenses because
absolutely
when they would apprehend them, they would run the warrant checks, and quite frequently they came up with people in the warrants, and that was a terrific deterrent. And also, fare beating was prosecuted under the New York State penal law as a criminal offense. Now it's a civil offense with a civil summons. So really, it's kind of meaningless. So that's contributed to the problem. The changes in the in that.
I mean, imagine how much we could reduce by tomorrow morning if the fare beaters were actually punished. You would have a drastic decline in who gets into the system. But again, you then have to protect the public upstairs on the street, and the bail laws still come into play. There's no way to escape this crime right now. You can't escape it on the street. You can't escape it on underground, and you can't escape it anywhere because of these bail laws.
Correct.
So, Jeff, in addition to subway crime, street crime, growing crime from the illegal alien population here, there's another big threat to public safety, which I think it could turn out to be the worst one of all. Since October 7th, since the massacre against Israel, we've seen a growing pro-Hamas movement here in New York City, other cities around the country. And I obviously you're aware of these protests. I'm sure you're as disgusted by them as I am. Explain to the audience that these are not protected by the First Amendment, right? Or tell me if I'm wrong here. When masses of people commandeer the biggest streets of the most important city on earth, they are stepping outside the realm of the law. Would you agree
Absolutely.
with that?
Listen, I have been involved personally in many rallies in my life that I helped put together. One of the largest was a rally of 25,000 people in Times Square at the time that Obama was pushing through the Senate the farcical deal with Iran, as if Iran is going to stop going after a nuclear weapon. We had 25,000 people. So we had to go to the precinct. We had to get a permit. We had to coordinate with the community affairs unit. We have to get a permit for the sound system. We have to do this. We have to do that, and so on. We do it. That's what you have the right to demonstrate in this country and in this city and this state, but you have to schedule it. You have to be given a site where you stand. You can't go in, for example, let's say these jihadists, they want to protest against the Salute to Israel parade. They can't go in the middle of the parade and start parading. They give them a place. You know, it's not a place that I would want them. I'd want them further out, but they get their place. Now, you have people today in New York. I'm telling you, someone's going to get killed. What do I mean? It happened already in LA. You have people that have doctor's appointments. You have people that have chemo appointments and all kinds of life-saving measures that people have in life. They're being blockaded. They're being imprisoned against their will near Barclays, by the Brooklyn Bridge, by the Manhattan Bridge, in Midtown. They go and disrupt the Rockefeller Center tree lighting. They disrupt Jews exercising their rights in defense of Israel with a permit. And they do it all illegally. And how are they allowed to do that? Because the police department is told to stand by. They're not allowed. And when they arrest them, desk appearance tickets. Those are disappearance tickets. It's a bunch of nonsense. Desk disappearance tickets. The arrests are very minuscule. They're symbolic because the police department is ordered that way. Caban, Banks, all of them, from the top brass on down. We don't want any real confrontations here. So they let them run wild in the city. They let them abridge the rights of the citizens. Forget about people with emergencies. People can't go about their business. You saw this one fellow, he was by the Manhattan Bridge. He says, hey, my daughter's coming home from school. She's a minor, and I'm going to Brooklyn. He got her out of the way, and they moved out of the way. But what's going to happen with all of the more aggressive people and those which are the majority? And you've seen it, riots already. You've seen it. You saw it in Bay Ridge. You saw it elsewhere. These people are anti-American. They're pro-jihadist. They're pro-Hamas. They don't like Americans any more than they like Israelis. And the public that administers us, the government, does not want to. They don't want to deal with it. So it's just like common crimes. They're dealing in the same manner with these violent demonstrations. It's an emasculation of the police as usual. It's standing back, standing down, and they can march and own the streets anytime they want. And again, when they do arrest, it's symbolic. No one wants to put a stop to it.
One of the pro-Hamas ringleaders is a CUNY student, or a former CUNY law student by the name of Nordine Kaswani. She's one of the most vile, most radical protesters in the city. At a recent protest, she made a statement that, and I'm quoting here, all levels of government in New York there will be consequences for all levels of government, including the governor, the mayor, and the fascist NYPD. And I'm trying to rack my brain. I'm trying to figure out, what does she mean by consequences? I don't think she's talking about bringing lawsuits or challenging them at the polls. I think she's talking about something more sinister here. And yet, nobody seems to be paying attention.
Look, the issue you're raising, you're coming down to the street level, but you have to understand where all this comes from. There are basically 3 countries in Europe which are very careful. Frankly, they don't want people who are not you. If you're going to, you have to understand. Let's talk very openly. Unlike Christianity and Judaism, which have undergone reformations of their own through the millennia,
sure,
the Islam of today is the same Islam of 633 AD, in the time that Muhammad conquered many nations to spread Islam. Now, this does not mean that all Muslims are a problem. The problem is you have to know who you're letting into this country. People coming from dysfunctional societies with honor killings, with all kinds of things that are unacceptable in Western civilization. These things, you have to know who you're letting in and what their beliefs are. They didn't just let my parents come across here. They were interviewed. They had to prove they were not certain things. Poland, the Czech Republic, and Hungary they understand this. From the point of racial violence, they're the safest places to be. It's safer to be a Jew in Budapest today than to be in Paris. And that's the plain truth. Now, you come to New York. You have people coming in, piggybacking on the border. Look, migrants who come from South America, they're supposed to come here honestly. They're supposed to come here off a list. Everyone should wait their turn. But at the end of the day, most of them are not coming here to change our society. These people who march in the street, these jihadists, they want to change our society. They don't like America the way it is. They want to live here the way they lived in Syria or Libya or all of those other fine countries over there. But it's very interesting. If it was so bad there that they came here, why are they trying to make it here like it was over there? Nobody asked that. Now, these are tough questions, and this is why I never ran for office, because all these quotes that I have all over the place would have destroyed me. So I don't want to be on the public dole. But what I'm trying to say, in essence, is that they're being given illegitimate privileges to rule the street. Now, Nordine Kaswani, she comes from something called the CUNY Law School. When we were there, our board, which was appointed by Bloomberg, Giuliani, and Pataki in those days. I was on there for 15 years. So we cleaned it up quite a bit. CUNY became the greatest bargain in America for the first time in 40 years. Now, it's worse than it was before we got there. Why is that? Well, I'll give you an example. I could tell you many stories like this, but one example. The CUNY Law School wanted to honor with an honorary degree, if you can believe it, Lynn Stewart. Lynn Stewart was the attorney for the blind sheik who blew up the World Trade Center the first time in 1993. And Matt Goldstein was one tough cookie. He said, listen, the dean of the law school said, Chancellor, the students choose. I said, listen, I don't care who chooses what. If you honor her, there are going to be repercussions for your budget and all kinds of problems. You already have a big enough problem. Your law school, your bar pass rate is in the toilet. You already have a big problem. Concentrate on the academics. And let me tell you something. If the chancellor wanted to stop a lot of this on campuses, he could. Or he'll take he'll have a lot of problems doing so, but you can't. But once you let it out of control, it's very difficult. Now, Nardine is a product of that law school. If I were in charge, I would close that law school. It's not a public service. It's a law school that educates socialists, communists, and people who advocate for anti-democratic violence. I wouldn't hire anyone from that law school. It's nonsense law school. We have enough law schools in New York that still operate, at least appropriately, that we can have our kids go to. There's Brooklyn Law School, there's Columbia, there's Pace Law, there's all kinds of law schools, all kinds. Well, this CUNY Law School is a waste of money, and Nardine Kaswani and others are the product of that school.
Well, how do we shut it down? I doubt the governor is going to do it. I doubt the mayor is going to do it. Do you think the next, and President Biden's not going to do it? Do you think the next president might have to?
No. Look, the Democratic Party is out of the control of moderation. Yeah, you have a few good Democrats in office, but they can't control the game anymore. It's very sad. I think the odds of electing a Republican statewide are very small. Doesn't mean we don't try, but I think the odds are very small. And remember that when Pataki was governor, we had to deal with Sheldon Silver, but we had a Republican state Senate. Andrew Cuomo liked the Republican state Senate because he could govern, even though he was a liberal, and his policies are not mine. But by having a Republican state Senate, he could keep the state from going off the deep end into the extreme. Now it's off the deep end. It really is. Yesterday, my daughter's wedding, we have a neighbor here in Great Neck. He's a lovely guy, Tom DiNapoli. He's a state controller.
Right.
He's a Democrat. Put out a report, it's in Crane's Business today, that the migration of over 500,000 people with serious money is a deep threat to the future stability of the city and state.
Sure.
They're taking big money with them. You see, a lot of rich people, they didn't mind. Okay, rich people rather not pay as much tax, but when they talk about fair share, I don't know what they're talking about. Those people put billions of dollars of income tax into the coffers. I know plenty of rich people. That's what I do for a living. I count other people's money. But the point is, they didn't complain or depart as nearly as much, maybe a tiny fraction, when you had a Bloomberg, Pataki, Giuliani state. Why? Because they felt they got their money's worth. Not only did they have the culture of New York, but they could enjoy it in safety. They could go out at night and know it's reasonable that they could actually get on the subway. They could walk the streets at night. People are scared now. So they said, why should I pay for this? And I'm paying for all of these illegals, many of whom are committing crimes now. Why should I pay for this? So they go to Palm Beach, they go to Texas, they go wherever they can find relief. Now, the problem for me is culturally, I'm a New Yorker. I couldn't live 7 months, 8 months in a very warm climate. From May till October. Florida is beautiful, by the way. We have a small apartment there. But to me, it's not fit for human habitation from May till October. It's good, for alligators, for Burmese pythons. For them, it's wonderful. I can't stand that kind of weather. But there are enough people, they have more options than me. So they can go there for 4 months. They can come back here for 4 months. They can go, to Maine for 4 months. So they can avoid New York State taxation altogether. And they do. And Tom DiNapoli is the only guy who warns of the dangers of what's happening. They don't care. It's very funny.
Hey, Jeff.
Someone at my at the wedding yesterday remarked to Tom DiNapoli. He said, Tom, you're the Jewish controller of New York, because Lander is a lefty guy. Spend all the money you want, and he has dinner with pro-Hamas people. I mean, that's disgusting. Just disgusting. He's another. God forbid he becomes mayor. We'll be even worse. If you can imagine, we'll be even worse trouble than we are now if you get someone like Brad Lander.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. 3 couples, 4 vacations, a lot to unpack. Watch The 4 Seasons, a new series starring comedy favorites Tina Fey, Steve Carell, Will Forte, Coleman Domingo, and more in a hilarious and heartfelt love letter to long-term relationships. Based on the original Alan Alda film. Watch The 4 Seasons, streaming now only on Netflix.
Shopping is hard.
I can never find anything in my size.
I don't even know my size.
I buy my clothes the same place I buy my groceries.
There's a better way. Make it easy with Stitch Fix. Just share your size, style, budget, and done. Your personal stylist sends pieces picked just for you.
That was easy.
Stitch Fix. Online personal styling for everyone. Free shipping and returns. No subscription required. Get started today at stitchfix.com.
This episode is brought to you by Factor. Optimize your nutrition this year with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Eat smarter at factormeals.com/listen50 and use code LISTEN50 for 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Factormeals.com/listen50, code LISTEN50. T's and C's apply.
Faraday presenta Ojos con Alergia y Picazón contra el jardinero. Y el ganador es Faraday Extra Fuerte. Para aliviar la picazón de los ojos por alergia, actúa más rápido y supera a Claritin y Flonase aún a las 24 horas. Faraday, adelante.
Jeff, getting back to the State Assembly, there are 2 bills there. One would crack down on the types of legal protests. Can you talk about that?
Yeah.
No, illegal. I'm sorry. I said legal. Illegal protests.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was very surprised. Audrey Pfeffer D'Amato, who represents the Rockaways, Far Rockaway in particular, she's a co-sponsor of that bill. I was very surprised that she put that forward. I was rather admiring of her that she did. But of course, Heastie and Mamdani, that anti-Semite socialist jihadist from Astoria, they already made clear in the city council that's not going anywhere. The assembly's not going to move it anywhere. It was a great gesture. The Republicans would be with her all the way, but they don't have the numbers. And I don't think you can get enough Democrats, and I don't think Heastie would allow it to come to the floor. I would be shocked if he did, but that is an excellent measure because, again, I told you the way I was involved in protests and many others, we get permits, we do it properly according to the law. You don't go and disrupt people's lives the way they're doing right now. It's outrageous.
Well, if it doesn't work at the state level, what can local New York City politicians do to address these protests?
Adams, for all his good bluster, when he elicits good bluster, he's afraid of the electorate. He knows that the problem we have, and this we have to blame on ourselves. The number of people that come out in primaries, moderate people because it's all controlled by Democrats here. Republicans really don't have a voice except in a few council districts. Marmorato, Vicky Palladino, Borelli, and a very few. Ina Vernikov.
Sure.
You have a very few great people in there, but the Democrats control it. And really, Adams, I think, knows that the people who come out in the Democratic primary, even though moderate people, normal people, still are the majority of the city, even among minorities, they're not all leftists, but they don't come out enough to vote. And the leftists, the communists, the pro-jihadists, these people are determined, and they come out in the primary, and they take the majority of the primary. And how many people voted? Like 16% in the Democratic primary, some ridiculously low number. So I think that Adams fears that if he supports strong measures, which probably in his heart does, he knows the limits. He was a cop. He knows the limits.
Right.
But I think he's afraid that the progressives will come out in greater numbers, and they'll throw him out in the ash can. That'll be it for him. So he's afraid.
I wouldn't give Adams that much credit. Look, I know the guy. I was in the police department when he was in transit. And what you should know is that he keeps saying he spent 22 years in the police department. He did not. He spent 11 years in the transit police when it was a separate agency. And then when the merge took place in 1995, he came over to the police department where he did another 11 years. So the 22 years that he claims he was in the police department is not so. He spent 11 years. And when he was in the police department, all he did was make trouble. I remember very well because I was there. So wait, I just want to finish this.
Yeah.
So I don't think, you said that he knows. I don't think he knows. I really don't. I think he is just a plain ordinary politician. He became a cop. He didn't really do anything as a cop. He was a troublemaker. And my opinion of it is that he does not do what should be done. That's my opinion.
Here's what I think about him. I think if let's take it just from a politician's angle, forget about the other angle. If he believed that the moderates would come out big in the primary and they would approve of him cracking down hard and telling the police, I'm not holding you guys back anymore. I want arrests. I want to bring the crime down by force. If he thought that the public will not just anecdotally support him, but that portion of the public would come out in greater numbers at the Democratic primary than the progressives, he would do it for his own self-preservation. He doesn't do it. He doesn't do it because he knows that the progressives now control the primary vote in New York. He knows. So this is just self-preservation, man. It's all about what,
Well, that's what I'm saying. He's a politician. He doesn't really care, as far as I'm concerned, about safety for the city. He cares about his own career, which
but it doesn't. But you see, my point is, look, Bloomberg cared, Giuliani cared, but today, what I'm saying to you, it doesn't matter if he cares. I don't care why somebody does something, even if it's for self-preservation. I really don't care why they do it, as long as they do the right thing. He doesn't do it because he knows they don't come out to vote. And therefore, it's not of use to him. Every politician has self-preservation.
He's a path of least resistance guy. He's not Giuliani. He's not Bloomberg.
That's a good point. That's a good comment. Yes.
Yeah.
And he uses this constant phrase of pivot and shift. Pivot and shift. What does that mean? Pivot and shift.
He should have been a boxer. He should have been a boxer. Right. That's what you do. You pivot and shift if you're a boxer.
Now, getting back to the police department and law enforcement in general, how do you think the police department should behave under the current situation? Step up what they're doing, even though Adams is not really doing what he should be doing.
I don't know what to say. There was a time in my life when I was a teenager, I want to be a New York City cop, and I ended up going to the bureau for 5 years. But the reason young people, when they do go to the PD, the NYPD, the reason they go there when they pay them dreck compared to the counties outside of here is because they feel, since it's so big, they can get more promotional opportunities. There's a big diversity of there's mounted, there's aviation, there's like a little Navy. There's all kinds of things that they can go into that not every police department has. So they go in there because they can move around, they can move up, and they got opportunity. But pay they don't have, until they get to a significant level. They don't have really good pay. So if you want to be an officer, you just want to be you like being an officer. Like when they had that show a year ago, I happen to like that show, East New York. They had this black cop. He didn't want promotions. He just wanted to be an officer on the street. He liked training the rookies. They moved on. He stayed. He liked it. He liked the action. So I say to myself, they started at this low salary, then they get some overtime. But why? You have a family at home. You know that you could be subject to discipline so easily for something that's really not negative. You got to hold back. You have so many restrictions. You got to be a lawyer. You got to have a lawyer in your head to remind you everything that you can't do. Why would you do that? So morale is low. They right now can't replace the number with recruits, even if they're putting it in the budget. They can't replace with the number of recruits the number that are retiring. This is a catastrophe. And by the way, Bratton discusses all of these aspects much better than I can because he ran it. He discusses it every day. The man should be recognized as an authority on the subject. But the people that count are not paying sufficient attention to him. They don't want to go back to broken windows or anything like that. So I don't know what the path forward is. I don't know. I don't know how we bring back the streets. We don't have the cooperation of legislators. And again, as I said, the mayor being afraid of the left for his own self-preservation will not unleash the police in a positive way to do what they have to do. I don't know how we climb out of this dilemma. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you how we climb out. We climb out and the next year at the election. Elections have consequences, and I hope that the consequences of the next election will change the current situation into one for the better. And with that, we're going to conclude because we're running out of time. I want to thank you very much for your time.
No, it's great that the two of you guys raise the issues that everybody should be interested in hearing about. Instead, we get all kinds of pablum on the news and from the public officials, and we're not getting anywhere. And that's the problem. So really, you're doing great work, really.
Okay. Hope to see you again one of these days.
You too. All the best to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you. All the best.
Stay safe out there.
You too.
At this time, I'd like to thank everyone for listening. And if you like what you hear, please subscribe. You could also follow us on Twitter at Cop Talk WABC. That's at Cop Talk WABC. Until next time, be safe out there. God bless law enforcement throughout the world, and God bless America. Thank you.